Alex Mozet, and welcome to Winner Take All, where we talk about the constant battle to fight back and win against big tech monopolies. We are seeing the tech monopolies both deliver really strong earnings and investors being happy with their ability to continue to grow even in a softening economy. We call it a recession. Other people may not want to call it a recession, but we're in a recession. You see that with Amazon announcing that they cut 100,000 jobs. They've already done this, not that they're planning to do this. Amazon shrank its staff by 100,000 people last quarter, joining the ranks of others like Google and Microsoft. And Apple said it's going to slow down hiring. Facebook is going to slow down hiring new engineers. Shopify is laying off 1,000 employees. Oracle is reducing its headcount by thousands and plans to save $1 billion in employee costs for the year itself. So you're seeing big tech of all sorts get out in front of this, slow down hiring, if not actually laying people off. And the tally here from this article is over 28,000 tech workers at more than 150 companies have already been fired, not even including the signaling of additional tightening, less hiring, or coming layoffs that have been announced just, in the past couple weeks here with earnings season. Already you've had 28,000 tech workers fired just in this year itself, right? One of the funny stories in all of this was this story about Zuckerberg in an all-hands meeting just in the past couple weeks here. A frustrated Mark Zuckerberg paused during his weekly Q&A with Meta Platforms employees. He'd just gotten through warning everyone about the punishing downturn he saw coming. He thinks the economy is headed for one of the worst downturns that we've seen in recent history, and then talked about how they're freezing hiring in many areas, how TikTok is making tremendous gains against Facebook and Meta. They have a lot of work in front of them to regain ground from TikTok and yada, yada. And Apple squeezing them on the ads and all these things, right? So Zuckerberg is not painting a pretty picture at their all hands meeting. And so poor Gary, well, no, I guess not poor Gary did this to himself. But apparently the first question that Zuckerberg got, right, all hands, anyone can ask Zuckerberg a question. So the first question is from this guy named Gary. He goes, hi there. I'm Gary, and I'm located in Chicago. His question was, would Meta days, Facebook days, right? These are extra days off that they introduced during the pandemic. He goes, would Meta days continue in 2023? Right? Zuckerberg, guys, we're in deep doo-doo. We gotta batten down the hatches. We got to grind it out. Can't hire. We got competitors coming after us. Gary says, so Zuck, about those extra days off, you think we're still going to have those? Zuckerberg appeared visibly frustrated. And he goes, given my tone and the rest of the Q&A, you can probably imagine what my reaction to this question is, Zuckerberg said. Oh, Gary, what were you thinking, Gary? Well, okay. So in Gary's defense, apparently the questions were pre-recorded. So Gary did not have the context that Zuckerberg was going to open the meeting and say, yeah, hell is freezing over. You kind of need to wonder, well, what are the Facebook employees who said, well, what questions should we give our fearless leader, Zuckerberg? Yeah, let's give him the Gary question. Let's see, maybe they were having some fun with him, right? Because these are all pre-recorded questions, and they decided to A, not only play this one at all, but B, play that one first. I actually put the blame on whoever was kind of coordinating this all hands kind of orchestration of questions from the employees. But anyway, probably to no surprise, shortly after that Q&A ended, Facebook no longer has canceled entirely their Meta days, and those are gone. So I thought it helps bring some color You've had a lot of these cuts become more publicized. You've seen it somewhat widespread across, all of the pretty much all of the major tech players. They see the downturn, and they like the VCs who have signaled to their startup portfolios to do something similar, rein in costs and hunker down for a tough couple of years. The tech monopolies are actually, that said, yes, they're trimming costs, but they're in a much better position to really lean in and invest in growth in these downturn times, which we saw in spades in spring and summer of 2020, right? You had the big tech monopolies say, hey, we're leaning into this. We're going to continue to invest. So even though you see them trimming cost in areas on kind of headcount, I still think you're going to see these tech monopolies continue to invest in growth in other ways, or invest in headcount in other parts of their business where some of their smaller competitors are not able to. That's the benefit of being a large player, having the capital, having the resources, and having that dominance, going into a downturn. Jeff Bezos got divorced. We all know that, right? But do you actually know the story behind why he got divorced? And would you believe me if I said it was actually because of the Saudis? So let's go kind of way back time machine here. You remember that Washington Post reporter, his name was Khashoggi, kind of looking into the kingdom's dirty secrets. The royals and the powers that be in Saudi Arabia were not happy about this reporter snooping around. And lo and behold, Khashoggi dies by guess who? Yeah, the Saudis. Huge uproar. Everyone's in the US, not happy about it. What are we going to do? Here's the crazy thing. It actually doesn't stop there. So at some point in time, after all of that, when did that happen? Khashoggi was killed in October of 2018. Fast forward to early 2019, when all the stuff comes out, right? Like Jeff Bezos is like, hey, someone's trying to blackmail me. They're trying to, put nude photos of myself, like selfies Bezos had taken, whatever, and put them on the internet. Don't let me be extorted, kind of riling everyone up against this group that had gotten into Jeff Bezos's text messages clearly, or, gotten to someone's phone that had these photos of Jeff or that he was texting these things to, right? And say, how in the world would someone get that information? How would someone hack into Jeff Bezos's phone? Jeff Bezos, this time he might have been the richest person in the world, and get this information and then try and blackmail him. That's their plan, right? And then it comes out that Jeff was actually having an affair, and he was actually having an affair with the wife of the co-CEO of WME. Have you ever seen that show called Entourage? Ari in the show. So Ari is actually based after a real guy. That guy is Ari Emanuel. Ari Emanuel is the other co-CEO of WME, William Morris Endeavor. It's one of, if not the biggest kind of talent agency in the world. They've got Silver Lake money. I think they still own the UFC. These guys are major players in the world of Hollywood and entertainment and all that stuff, right? So it's literally Ari Emanuel's, Ari from Entourage, his partner, this guy, Patrick. I've met Patrick. Nice guy. It's his wife that Jeff Bezos is having an affair with. Presumably that's where the photos came from that, they were then trying to blackmail Jeff with. What came out is that he's flying her around on private jets and all this crazy stuff behind Patrick's back and behind Jeff's wife's back, and having this affair and all this kind of stuff, right? Jeff gets a divorce, tens of billions of dollars go to the wife, all this mania, right? I think probably the most expensive divorce in history. But how did they get that information? Here come the Saudis. Apparently, the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, who's basically the king, but the king's still alive. It's the guy who's going to inherit the throne. That guy was WhatsApping with Jeff Bezos, and he sent him a video or an image, something, right? On WhatsApp, it downloads the thing to your phone. So right? When all of this happened, when Jeff Bezos, like all this information leaked, apparently his security team naturally leapt into motion when like, oh my God, we got, who's on your phone? What's happening? How did they get this information? Jeff's like, what? How did they get this information? I got a whole security team. Then they started to look at his phone and they said, wow, it was after like you downloaded this thing off of WhatsApp. And then they could see the traffic and all the outgoing messages spike through the roof. And guess who sent him the thing that downloaded onto Jeff's phone that then basically hacked into his phone, put this bug there that then sent all of his messages to the Saudis. It was the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And then they pilfered through all of his messages and then found that he was having an affair and found all these messages. And then they actually sold that to this other group in the US, right? And then that's the group that then tried to blackmail Jeff and, actually leaked the whole stories. But the Saudis didn't want it directly mapped back to them, right? They want to be like, oh, well, Saudi Arabia's hacked his phone and and is blackmailing Jeff Bezos, right? So they kind of put another layer of obfuscation into place, gave it to this other guy, which you go find, I don't know, his name and all this stuff. And that's how this happened. It was actually because of the Saudis. Crazy, crazy stuff. There's a whole other world at the very, very, very upper echelon of money. And, this was just one little peek behind the curtain of how they play the game. So let's revisit some of the grocery analysis. We talked a lot about grocery in the throes of COVID. Haven't talked about it in a little bit. What's interesting is, so there's a recent report that came out comparing how much adoption the grocers, the actual retailers' apps have gotten. Looking at Kroger versus Albertsons versus Publix and ShopRite, HEB, right? All these guys. And then, but what they actually did not analyze was how does that compare against Instacart and Walmart, which is kind of interesting why they would not put Walmart in the analysis. A couple of these grocers have also announced their own marketplace initiatives. And then some of those marketplace initiatives have actually gone away. Kroger's the leader in this comparison, followed by Albertsons. And then if you look more recently, Ahold, which owns Food Lion and Stop and Shop, and Fresh Direct, which is on my other chart. And we helped Ahold in the acquisition of Fresh Direct. Those are your top three. But then, the number 4, 5, 6 player are from there, somewhat similar in ranking. What this chart doesn't include is looking at Instacart, Walmart, Shipt, Fresh Direct, and Peapod, also both owned by Ahold. And they also don't have Amazon Fresh and Whole Foods in here. So it's both of these charts are kind of, it's selective. Like, what are you actually comparing? It's not really apples to apples. Main takeaways, though, are digital adoption of ordering your groceries through an app or online is growing. Kind of a no-brainer. Delivery and pickup, a huge component of that. How can you provide that convenience as a part of the experience? And actually pickup particularly during COVID, pickup was the thing that actually had Walmart's app explode in terms of downloads. It was grocery pickup or just pickup in general for Walmart. So, but grocery being the really big area where customers didn't want to go into the store. They needed groceries. And during COVID, hey, Walmart will now let you do pickup for your groceries and just, sit in your car and groceries will be brought out to you. That was actually, I think, probably the biggest driver of adoption for the Walmart app. We had videos on this where you saw Walmart's app just at the top of the download list and huge growth in e-commerce. And a big part of that, if you remember what they did in the app, is they kind of broke out the grocery part from the workflow and really accelerated the ability to do pickup for groceries. So Very rapidly changing environment. You've seen, Kroger go into Florida with Ocado, which is really purely a delivery model. No stores. Publix is huge in Florida. It's where they're headquartered. And so Kroger's trying to go into Florida, but now in a kind of basically purely like a dark store type of model. Ocado out of the UK has a lot of these kind of automation technologies. You've seen a Hold invest in similar technologies. And then you've seen the actual flavor of marketplace also come onto this, right? How could you broaden that product catalog and offer other products, natural and specialty products, other products that maybe you're not going to get from the store, and allow those to be delivered. We've seen Amazon's actually put the brakes on a lot of the Amazon retail push, which was all the rave over the past couple of years. Yes, they have Whole Foods, obviously, but a lot of the physical Amazon rollout has actually been paused or is actually shuttering some of those stores. Also, another very interesting dynamic in all of this. So, going back to this article, they ranked the grocery store's ability in these 4 areas: coupons, loyalty and rewards, inventory, price check, and cart. That means curbside pickup, right? Those 3 would actually be, to me, the biggest ones. Curbside pickup actually showing that a majority of these players are not doing so well there. And again, based upon the Walmart story, that's a huge driver. Loyalty makes sense. You actually spend a lot of money on groceries. Those rewards programs are a huge driver, particularly in these, recurring high repeat customer markets. This is in large part linear competition. Albertsons had tried to create a marketplace and then they shuttered it, kind of went away. Kroger has announced a marketplace. Hold has announced a marketplace, right? So all 3 of these leading players here have all announced marketplace initiatives. They're all somewhat nascent. So I don't think that's really the difference maker here. And how they view marketplace is different than how Instacart views marketplace. Instacart is just connecting you to different retailers. They're disintermediating this right here. Instacart hates this chart, which is just people using the actual grocery store's app rather than Instacart. And I think loyalty is probably one of the biggest hooks that those apps can do to say, hey, order through my app and you're going to get the loyalty. But if you order through Instacart, you don't. I mean, you got to have curbside pickup figured out if you really want to compete with Instacart. Instacart's business model is challenged because they don't actually hold the inventory, right? Like Instacart's ability to actually make money. That's why you've seen Instacart move more into trying to make money on the ads and then go around to the suppliers, which makes sense because they really haven't been able to make money on the actual purchasing of groceries because they don't actually hold the inventory. It's such a low margin business. In the early days of Instacart, they're actually tacking on, actually increasing the price of the goods that you'd buy on Instacart versus if you just went to the store and they were making margin there. That's all gone away. They got into some trouble for that. And so it's very, very difficult for them to actually make any money in this process. Hence, hiring all these executives away from Facebook, and going really heavy into ads. There's actually a lot of money in that. These suppliers want to be able to influence consumers' purchasing decisions at the point of sale. And who could better do that than Instacart and do that across all these different grocers? Which is interesting because that actually dovetails with this other Amazon initiative here, which Amazon just rolled out. Even though Amazon's put a pause on really kind of rolling out Fresh and Amazon Go and all these things, they've just launched this, they call it Data Platform for Physical Store Suppliers. Amazon has introduced an analytics tool that allows CPGs to track shopper interest in products they sell in Amazon Go and Amazon Fresh stores, equipped with their frictionless, I think they call it just walk out technology. The new service known as Store Analytics will provide suppliers with aggregated and anonymized insights, collected by Amazon's Just Walk Out and Dash Cart systems about how customers interact with items and whether they purchase them. So what does this mean? It's more than just saying, hey, like what products are people buying? And then give me some sense of location. And so I kind of look at demographics and all that kind of stuff, right? They're trying to go a level deeper with this. Brands will be able to know the percentage of people who take a product off the shelf and then buy it. Okay, interesting. Like you take it off the shelf and then you don't buy it. I guess some people do that. With Amazon Go, you really have to put it back. Otherwise, they charge you if you don't put it back in the same place, which helps the grocery stores have a lot of money they lose just in terms of lossage, right? You take yogurt, you don't put it back, it goes bad, you got to throw it out. I think it's like 3% of lossage, which in a low margin business is a big deal. But not only do they buy it in the store, or do they buy it online on Amazon.com? That's interesting, right? So you're kind of hooking the in-store experience with the digital experience. See how well they can actually deliver on that premise, but it's an interesting concept. Providing greater kind of connectivity if you're doing ads in the store, and then mapping back those metrics. I think it's interesting, right? It's new. This is nascent, but how can you bring more data to the in-store shopping experience? How can you kind of connect the loop back to what you're buying digitally, right? Especially now with more and more people using digital apps, whether it's Instacart or now more and more of the grocery store's actual apps. What's actually a disruptive play in all of this? I do think the automation and these kind of like micro warehouses, automated kind of like MFCs, like micro fulfillment centers that can put product close to the customer and have a very low cost to serve, particularly when you look at more suburban areas and geographies that aren't as high density. I think you're starting to see, the verdict is still out, but Kroger's made a big play in Florida. That is a way the technology is completely kind of reinventing how you sell groceries, right? It's more than just like an app or a marketplace, right? It's actually kind of an end-to-end supply chain shift. So I think things in that direction, to me, are really where you're going to see kind of game-changing capabilities as it relates to fresh, hyper-localized shopping, right? Grocery, these kinds of areas. Okay, so add this one into the category of we called it. We have been very skeptical of Siebel, who's running YCombinator, and his directive to basically turn YC into a state college rather than an Ivy League school. And no, I'm not some elitist who went to an Ivy League school. Did go to a fancy boarding school, but still didn't go to an Ivy League school. We never really thought that what YCombinator was trying to do, especially with COVID and how they got so loose on the ability to just go remote, and they weren't even having people come in person anymore and had these massive classes, right? These are super early stage businesses. Like, how are you really going to create the same amount of value for the business in that kind of a model? You as the program. B, a lot of the value is also, I think, just being around other like-minded individuals, just like university, right? Go to college. Yeah, you do the classes, but like, who did you meet there? Who are the friends you made? Who are the connections, right? Like, I think there's a lot of value in that, just the energy and how it really pushes you to grind like aggressively for this 13-week program, but also maybe not get burnt out, which you can easily do when you're just, working hard and you got your demo day. And if you don't, you're in trouble, right? And there's been others that have critiquing this. I think we've been definitely one of the more vocal people to critique this shift. And now they are slashing their size. YCombinator slashes startup accelerator class size by 40%. They are blaming it on, that's right, the economy. How does economic recession and YCombinator's class size have any correlation whatsoever, right? Like the time horizon for these startups, the problems that they're solving and the scale that they have is so small, right? Like get one customer, get two customers. Do you really think that economic softening is going to change their ability to be successful. If anything, you could actually argue that in a time of softening, now's the time to really lean in, because it's going to force people, more traditional players and incumbents in the industry, to look for new ways to innovate and new ways to solve problems, right? Like when the economy is booming and everyone's gangbusters, you can't get product and everyone's demand is good, right? It's like, well, no, I just got to try and make sure I have stuff on my shelf. But hey, now when there's a downturn, now you actually see people starting to lean in and be like, oh, actually, it's not easy to get business anymore. Maybe I should go work with this startup. Maybe this startup could help get me demand, or maybe this startup could help my business, operate more efficiently, right? No, but these guys are blaming the economy. And also, it's not like the money that they have to invest, right? To seed these startups. So if you enter the program, they give you money. It's not like YCombinator wasn't able to go close a new batch of funds because the economy is softening. These guys have $1 bajillion. They've raised funds to invest in follow-on rounds. Like, they've got the money. And so I think this is just a cop-out. When really what they're probably seeing is like, the quality of their ability to really vet the startups and help the startups when done in a model. They've never done it. They've never done it in two ways, right? They've never done it at this size and scale, and they've never done it in this like remote only model. Two massive departures from what has made YC very, very successful over the years. And they basically took both of those things on at the same time, right? Like, what's that saying? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah, they did a lot of tinkering. YCombinator doubled the number of startups it trained and funded after it shifted from in-person to remote programming in the summer of 2020. Yeah, no big deal, right? Earlier this year, 414 startups were participating in the program, up from 175 companies in summer of 2019. I mean, yeah, like Ivy League is better than state school. Sorry, don't shoot the messenger, but I'm just saying, like, it's an Ivy League school. I don't know. Like, why do you want to become a state school, bro? Doesn't make any sense. So we've got news that Google's trying to head off some antitrust breakup forces. Google has its own ad business for its own inventory, right? So buying ads on Google.com and YouTube and other actual Google properties. But then they also have a business where they allow you to buy ads that are served on other third-party websites. And this is where they get into trouble, right? This is kind of the 1P versus 3P conundrum that you see Amazon stuck with, right? Where they have third-party sellers selling products on Amazon, and then they're also selling their own products. And the platform always self-deals and gives themselves a better deal. Another example of this that Google is conflicted by is when they promote their own listings on Google.com, right, for their own properties, and then force other third parties to pay ads to be relevant or to be a part of that product. So you see that in a number of categories where Google's now started to just build out their own capability in like flights and hotels, for example, right? Or now part of shopping. And so if you want to be relevant, you now need to pay the gatekeeper, Google. But Google is going to favor its own listings, its own search results, its own inventory, basically, over third parties. That actually I don't think is what the regulators are clamping down on. What they're clamping down on are just the ad business for buying ads on Google properties versus these third-party properties. And it looks like Google has actually been scared by this and is proposing to split the business, that kind of third-party auction business, off into a separate company still under their umbrella. I guess that just means the teams can't talk anymore, even though they probably shouldn't have been talking already. It couldn't be determined whether any offer short of asset sales would satisfy the DOJ, where antitrust officials have signaled a preference for deep structural changes to Google's ad tech business rather than promises to change business practices. So yeah, we're going to take this auction third-party ad business and just put that into a separate business unit. That's really just a change to business practice and process. It's still all owned under the same umbrella. I hope that the DOJ sticks strong, because ultimately, if the DOJ says, hey, we want you to sell this business off, Google is going to do, what do you think? Google's just going to be like, okay. No, Google's going to sue and not do it and take them to court. And you're going to be in court for years. And who knows how the courts will treat this, right? So Google's trying to make a settlement, and this is a procedural offer of theirs. So kudos to the DOJ for, in their own weird way, zeroing in on the same theme. What is this theme? What is the only theme that we've seen stick to regulating the tech monopolies? It's producer aggression and producer abuse. When the tech monopoly takes advantage of its producers, of its suppliers, not the consumer. They're not talking about the consumer in this. They're saying, hey, Google abuses its role as both a broker and auctioneer to steer itself business at the expense of rivals. The department is preparing a lawsuit alleging that their ad tech practices are anti-competitive. Anti-competitive to who? To advertisers and to other probably, third-party auction sites, right? But they're not talking about the consumer. Like, how is the consumer disadvantaged if the advertisers are getting hosed on the ad, right? Like, the consumer is actually not a part of this at all, which is why I love this. It's what we've been saying for years now. I don't even know how many years. What is it? 20, probably 5 years. You got to focus on the producer, not the consumer, which inherently this ad focus has nothing to do with the consumer. It's all about producers and advertisers and all that kind of stuff. So that is great. I think they've found a good thread to focus on. Different thread than probably I would have focused on, but whatever. It's great. We gotta do something to put these tech monopolies in check. Something. We haven't had any wins, any material wins in the United States. Okay, we've had wins internationally. We've highlighted them on the show. Go check out those videos, like with Australia and in India. The US, nothing. I hope the DOJ sticks strong, doesn't take a settlement, and this goes to court. That's where it gets fun. That's when you know you're actually pissing off the monopoly, is that they don't agree and you go to court. This has to go to court if it really gets good. Because I think in the EU, their regulators have more power to just straight up just do things than the US regulators do. And so if this doesn't go to court, I don't think the DOJ is really jabbing them deep enough. I think that'll be a good telltale sign if they've really kind of hit, probably not a jugular, but at least like a decent sized vein or something. So we'll see. This is a crazy tale of just like, excuse me, what? I don't even know where to start on this. So I spoke to this company. I spoke to the CEO of this company. I love this company. I left that call. I was like, wow, these guys are amazing. We were doing some stuff in the hospitality space at the time. I was like, yeah, love these guys' model. The company is called Butler, and they were doing on-demand room service delivery. Think COVID shut down not only all the hotels, but then as the hotels started to open again, they weren't at capacity. They didn't have the staffing. They just weren't doing room service. Still, like barely any hotels are doing room service, right? It's like, oh, enter Butler, right? One of my favorite things about staying in hotels is room service. Get woken up with food. Amazing, right? Who doesn't love that? That's literally gone away at all the hotels. And it's a new company, newish. They were founded in 2018. They had raised like $5 million or so going into COVID. COVID hits. That summer, July 2020, they raised $15 million. And they're in thousands of rooms, or I think they called it keys. That was the thing. That was their thing. How many keys are we in? Like room keys. do they have under like management or purview, right? So you'd go into these hotels, they'd actually put like a little flyer in the room saying use Butler to order your room service, and Butler would then have a network of restaurants and food providers, and they're doing the fulfillment, getting you the food quickly, giving you a menu, giving you, that kind of tech-enabled room service experience. But it's not you ordering off of Uber Eats or DoorDash or these where, could take time. Like your food options might be limited. Can you schedule the delivery? That's also another really snazzy feature of being able to have room service. Like, hey, wake me up with breakfast, right? So can you bring a lot of that hotel room service experience, but do it in a way filling a gap for hotels that don't have functioning restaurants, or they have restaurants, but they're low staffed, they're not doing room service. And then there's actually a whole bunch of hotels that just didn't do room service at all. And that's actually where I think Butler started, was with those hotels. And then what COVID did was actually open up a whole other swath of hotels that had a higher demographic, a more affluent customer that was willing to pay for room service and convenience. But the hotel just wasn't equipped to meet those needs, right? So I think that was also another huge kind of like COVID benefit. So you're just like, wow, yeah, I love how this company is positioned. Kind of love the ethos of bringing this tech-enabled service. What are the other tech-enabled services that you could bring to this hospitality sector, right? There's a lot of other adjacent services that you could bolt on. Customers that pledge to deliver orders, including convenience items on the side, like chargers and shaving cream, in under 30 minutes, charged directly to their hotel bill. Awesome, right? They had their own restaurant concepts that they staffed. Maybe this is the gotcha. Maybe this is the thing that got them, that they were doing a lot of that linearly as opposed to working with third parties. I thought they were working with some third party restaurants as well, as opposed to doing it all themselves. But this is one of those where it's just like, it doesn't make any sense. They raised another $32 million in October of 2021 and were out of business by May, like out of business. You raised $32 million 6 months before. And it's gone. On May 16th, Butler sent an email to vendors that might have been considered reassuring. We are writing to inform you that room service and catering services will continue as is. All collateral is still functional. We appreciate your loyalty to sticking with us through these times. That was May 16th. The trouble was Butler's 1,000-person workforce had been laid off 3 days before that. In fact, most were told that the company had been dissolved. I mean, what? You got to be kidding me. They didn't give notice. They didn't pay severance. They owe people benefits. This is just a cluster. No notice to vendors, no communication, just imploded. I guess, the only thing here is they were very linear when I thought they were more I spoke to this guy, the CEO. They're much more linear than I thought they were marketplace. So they're asset heavy. They were started as a food kitchen, ghost kitchen company. So they were trying to, I guess, centralize the food production as opposed to working with select partners in the area, which is how I would have looked to diversify that. I don't know why you didn't. Anyway. And then they weren't charging for the delivery, or they were giving it away for free. And they said what they started to do at the last minute was charge for delivery when they had been giving away delivery for free, I guess. And just losing, probably a negative gross margin on every one of these orders, I guess. And then we're blaming COVID. But to me, COVID was probably one of the biggest reasons why they were successful and were able to raise this money and scale so aggressively. It's one of those stories where, it's not like I'd done deep diligence on the company, but I love the positioning. Company, all the outside signals looked amazing. We didn't put any money in. I didn't look at a data room. I didn't do a technical analysis, but it's just one of those stories, right? Where looks amazing on the surface, but then once you dig deeper, oh boy, yeah, that money is gone. It's 100% a management fail, just in terms of how you handled the wind down. None of it was managed at all. This thing blew up. Clearly, poor management, no board oversight, right? To recognize that and really ask the tough questions. Say, yeah, this company is going to blow up, or the business model is unsustainable. And when you raised over $30 million, collectively over $7 million in the span of 15, 16 months, you should be able to recognize the thing is sustainable or unsustainable. And if unsustainable, make changes to how the business is being operated, or also just recognize that you need an insane amount of money, some kind of lifeline here, right? Like there's so many ways that you should get out in front of this to subvert, just a complete blow up where all these poor now employees out of a job are owed money, don't have benefits. These people have families, that's not part of the deal. So that's not cool. And there could be legal ramifications for this guy too. Woof. That's it for us today on Winner Take All. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll talk to you soon.